get up here and tell you that, everyone dies in this book, but that wouldn't be true. Given the trend of the epic fantasy coming through lately, it would seem not unreasonable. Given Joe Abercrombie and George Martin, and the fact that you should never grow too attached to any one character. But Richelle doesn't tend to wholesale massacre her people off, thankfully. And since most of you might not have had a chance to read, we won't talk about whether Sydney or Adrian, or who ends up happy or who ends up sad. We're finally here at the conclusion of Bloodlines, so I'd like to thank you for coming. And please welcome Richelle Mead.
Hello. Oh, there I am. All right. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you University Bookstore for hosting. I heard a rumor that Dwayne, who was just out here, actually was invited to an early screening of 50 Shades of Grey tonight, and instead he came here to my event. So the staff here always goes above and beyond, but I think that really exemplifies how great everyone here is. So thank you to all of them for always putting on such a good event. So I am going to read a little bit of Ruby Circle for you tonight. Then we'll answer whatever burning questions you've been harboring, and then we will sign some books. But before we get going, I've been polling book crowds to see how you find out about these. Like, I never know how you guys all materialize here, if it comes to you in a dream or by carrier pigeon. I'm guessing social media is the culprit, but just show of hands, who heard about this event on Facebook? My Facebook page, I assume? Okay. What about Twitter? All right, that's surprising. Anyone actually on my mailing list? Does anyone use that? Oh, okay. I forget that it exists, and then right before a book comes out, I'm like, oh, maybe I should use that. And who's on the bookstores mailing lists or thing? Did you find out that way? Okay, good deal. Good to know how people are hearing about it. All right, so let's read a little bit. Ruby Circle, last book in the saga for now. Oh, don't get excited. I really don't have any plans at the moment, but you never know. Okay, so I'm going to read you a very short excerpt out of the Ruby Circle, and it's kind of a silly one because I like those so much, but also because it'll help offset the angst and tears she'll no doubt be experiencing later in the book. So we'll do something a little lighter right now. Okay, so we are in Adrian's point of view right now, and he and Sydney are on a road trip. One of many that happens in this book. Okay, it was true. Sydney and I hadn't had anything even remotely close to this kind of freedom in a long time. And even if we were stuck in the middle of the United States, instead of some tropical island, the options before us suddenly seemed limitless. After mulling over some internet maps, we finally made our way to Council Bluffs, Iowa. It didn't exactly scream excitement, but that was kind of the point. Most importantly, it was far away from the Alchemists in St. Louis, and even farther from Palm Springs, where Alicia was hoping Sydney would show up. We debated checking into a large chain hotel and finally settled on a small country inn just outside the town. We pulled up to it late in the morning and were greeted by a sign proclaiming, "Welcome to the Black Squirrel Lodge." "Oh no," groaned Sydney. "Please don't let this be like that rabbit place in Los Angeles. I don't know if I can handle a room full of squirrel decor." I grinned, thinking back to the time Sydney and I had investigated another bed and breakfast that had taken rabbits to an unprecedented height in tacky decorating. "Hey, come on," I said. "After everything else we've been through, that'd be the least of our worries." But when we stepped inside, we were pleasantly surprised to see everything was actually pretty tastefully decorated in neutral colors and modern decor. No quilts with squirrels on them or squirrel-shaped wicker sculptures in sight. The innkeeper, though surprised to see guests this early in the day, was happy to welcome us and get us into a room. "What's with the inn's name?" I asked as I paid for the room. The innkeeper, a kindly middle-aged woman, beamed. "Oh, that's in honor of Cashew." "Cashew?" asked Sydney. The innkeeper nodded. "Our resident black squirrel. I'd call him our pet, but, well, he's so much more than that." I peered farther into the lobby. "Does he have a cage here or something?" "Oh no," she said, "that'd be cruel, also illegal. He's..." She shrugged and gestured vaguely with her hand. "Well, he's around somewhere." "What do you mean around?" asked Sydney uneasily. "Like outside?" "Oh no," said the innkeeper. "Poor thing wouldn't know what to do out there." Sydney's eyes widened. "Wait, if he's not outside, then does that mean..." "Let's get you two into your room," said the innkeeper sunnily. "I've got your key right here." The room she took us to had a cozy sitting area and access to a private porch, as well as a big plush bed. After an uncomfortable day of travel, I was looking forward to catching up on sleep and finally getting some real rest. Before I could throw myself on the mattress, however, I knew I needed to get in touch with Nina and tell her the deal was off. When Sydney said she wanted to take a shower, I saw the perfect opportunity. It was just around the time Nina would be asleep, waiting for me to contact her through a spirit dream. I didn't have to be asleep for that, simply in a meditative state. I sat on the bed, calming myself and closing my eyes, calling on just enough spirit to reach across the dream world to Nina. My tranquil state was shattered, however, when I heard a scream from the bathroom. I opened my eyes and tore across the room, flinging the door open. "Adrian, look out!" cried Sydney. A small, furry black form leapt off the counter, landing right on my chest. Out of instinct, I swatted it off. It landed on the floor and went scurrying off across the room. Sydney, wrapped in a towel, stepped out and stood beside me. "I think it went under the bed," she said. "That thing had better not get on me again," I muttered, walking gingerly over to the edge of the bed. "You faced much worse than this," Aunt Tatiana said inside my head. "Stop being foolish." Sydney followed, and when I lifted a corner of the bed frame up, she waved her hand in what I recognized as a gesture for casting spells. Seconds later, I felt a breeze stir and blow under the bed. In moments, the squirrel, Cashew I presumed, came tearing out and began frantically racing around the room. Sydney, courageously overcoming her earlier shock, darted over to the door that led to the porch and opened it. After a few circuits of the room, the squirrel noticed and ran outside. Sydney slammed the door shut behind him, and for several seconds, we both just stood there. "Why," she asked at last, "can't anything ever just be simple for us?" Good question. Good question. All right. Those crazy kids. I'm going to miss them. Aw. Has anyone finished the book yet? No. So close. All right. Good deal. So before we do go off into questions, if you are one of those speedy readers who have finished it, do be careful with spoilers for the end of this book and any other big spoiler in the series in case someone is not as caught up as the rest of us. But other than that, we can ask some questions. So let me see. Is our time good? Yeah, we got about 20 minutes of questions, so have at it. Yes, ma'am. What's next? I am glad you asked. It is a book coming out in November. It is a standalone book, which is new and exciting territory for me because I'm just kind of like, can't we end on a cliffhanger? And my editor's like, well, no, Richelle, that is generally not how standalone books work. So I actually had to like figure out how to wrap it all up in one book, which was a fun challenge for me. Oop, t-shirted. All right. Yeah. Good. All right. Here we go. So Soundless, it takes place in a fantasy world that's been inspired by Chinese folklore and mythology. And it takes place in this village where, this remote mountain village where for generations no one has been able to hear and no one knows why. And so they've developed this whole society that doesn't utilize hearing. They use sign language and a lot of their communication is visual. And the protagonist is a teenage girl who's a very skilled artist, which makes her an important person in a village that's so visually driven. And one morning she wakes up and she can hear, which is obviously incredible for a lot of reasons, and she has no idea why. And so she then begins a journey to try to figure out what's going on with that and what happened to her village in the first place. And she is accompanied by a young man she used to be involved with, so it's complicated, as it often is in my books. But it's fun. It's a nice self-contained adventure, and it was really cool kind of working with Eastern mythology. And so that's my kind of breather book this year before I launch into my next longer drawn-out thing, which I am under lock and key and cannot speak about. But there will be more Richelle Mead stuff coming down the line. And also, the samplers, you guys got little booklets. I think they're the official blurb for Soundless is in there if you want to know more. Yeah, other things. Yes?
I know that you guys are doing a fundraiser for Frostbite. I love the first movie, that's completely different from the book, but it has some of the main parts in it. There's been no news because the fundraiser actually ended and a lot of those who donated haven't heard anything. Do you know any status on that? Because we really want to know, we really want to see it.
First of all, you got your money back, right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, that's
what.
no, I am glad. That was, I mean, I wasn't a part of that, but when I heard they were collecting money, I was like, all right, you're going to give it back, right, if it doesn't work out. Vampire Academy movie, the first one, from a movie standpoint, not successful, which is different from a successful book, because actually from a book sales point of view, it was kind of an awesome thing. So it was awesome for me, not so awesome for people who are hoping for a sequel. And I have not heard anything, I'm sorry to say. As far as I know, it is kind of dead in the water because they didn't get their funds. They certainly had a hard enough time getting funds for the first movie. Trying to convince people to back a vampire movie in a post-Twilight world was definitely a Herculean feat. So the fact that this production team even managed to do that is kind of remarkable, and also shows how dedicated they are, which makes me think they haven't given up on Frostbite just because they are that hardcore and made it happen the first time. How they will pull that off again, I'm not sure. A lot of people have said, oh, just go to TV, but just going to TV is very complicated as well. So it's not something you can do just because you want to. And so I really have no idea what their plan, if any, is. I'm removed from it since they own the rights. So hopefully they'll tell me before they do something, and I won't just like see a new movie poster for Frostbite. But certainly if I have any news, I will put it out through the usual channels. So yeah, sorry it's not a better answer than that. All right, here in the pink.
With Frostbite, it takes place in Spokane, and I was reading through it. I could not find anywhere where it says it takes place in Spokane.
They go to Spokane. Have you read the book?
Yes, but like literally, it doesn't really say what landmarks besides a mall. There are several malls.
Well, they were just I did not pick a specific mall to set it in. I'm sorry. If you're hoping to go get your picture taken there or something, it was.
Well, I live in Spokane.
Yes, I often use real cities, but I often use fictitious things, especially common things like that. Restaurants I make up, malls like that, just to. I mean, I'm usually not saying anything bad about these places, but I find it better just to, let's not step on any toes. And even some of the famous tacky attractions I use in my books, like in Ruby Circle, they go to a robot museum, which is loosely based on a real robot museum, but I moved its location and changed its name because they kind of make fun of it. And I didn't want the robot museum people, the real ones, to be like, why are you slandering us in your book? So it's just something I do. I kind of blur it. So I did with Spokane, even though it takes place in Spokane, because the location was useful for the storyline as far as being next to Idaho, where they needed to travel from. So that was why Spokane won out. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't have any more landmarks than that. Other questions? Yes.
So, I love Eddie. I always have ever since the Vampire Academy series, and I just wondered if you had ever considered making novellas for some of the smaller characters.
I have thought about that, novellas or short stories. Like as I said at the beginning, I really don't have any plans to engage in a new drawn-out Vampire Academy spin-off series. But there are like little stories I would like to visit with each of the characters. And so it's really will just come down to time and my schedule and things like that. But Eddie is certainly one who I think could use a story of his own at the very least. And when you do finish the Ruby Circle, even though I wrap it up, I know there's going to be people who will be like, well, you could actually tell a little bit more. So
Don't tell me you didn't hook them up.
I can't. No. I'm not saying what you'll want to know more on. Read it and you'll see. You'll see what I'm talking about. I'll stop before I ruin it. It's only a few tears in this book, but there are some tears. Yes, in the red.
Each title of the Bloodlines series has a connection to the storyline. Without spoilers, for
It is Sydney's ring.
Sydney's ring, okay.
Sydney wears a ring with a ruby on it, so it is a ruby circle. Yeah. Yeah. Plus, it just sounds cool. It's a cool name. Other questions? Yeah, in the blue there.
Do you have any more books planned for the Age of X series?
I do. Age of X is currently delayed by the young adult books. When my schedule is so tight as it is right now, especially with 2 kids, I don't put out as much books each year as I used to. And so the third, I think Age of X will have 4 at least. And the next one is called The Eye of Andromeda, but it has no pub date at the moment, which is unfortunate, and I hate to tell people that. But we are hoping to get more news on that soon. So I am sorry, but it is not forgotten. It has not gone by the wayside. And something kind of cool, I think I might have mentioned this at my last event, that's cool about Age of X is that there was a TV production company sniffing around it. But as I was saying before, TV in Hollywood are so nebulous, you really can't count on anything until you actually look at the screen and see your thing there. But the fact that anyone is showing interest in it is pretty neat, because I think that would be something that would be really fun to see on any screen, but especially I think it would lend itself well to a TV series. So fingers crossed on that. Yeah, and you had a question. Go ahead.
So I know you said no with Sydney, but my current question is, are you going to go ahead and do that research story a little bit? Because there's so many politics with becoming a queen and passing all these laws and stuff. You're going to try and tell me the story of like what she goes through. Give us snippets, but nothing really like. I want to know. Like she's done all this stuff. What's going on? Something about her and Christian, like what's and stuff like that. So many questions that.
Yeah, it's kind of like I said before. There are a lot of stories I want to tell, and certainly hers is one of them. Her and Christian in particular. I think that there's actually a few things I'd like to address, but at this time, it's just it's going to be time and schedule. Like when can I take a break from the other new things coming down the line to do a short story or novella. I do love these characters and I love this world, but I realized the other day I was doing an interview and I've been writing them for 9 years, and when you write one of these books, it takes 10 months. So you have to realize that for 9 years, for like probably almost every day during those 9 years, I have been like doing something with these books, and so it's healthy for me to take a break. I think it's healthy for you guys to read some new stuff. And it's, the characters, Sydney, Rose, they've been through a lot. They need to decompress and have a little me time. So yeah, it's there that I can do some stories, but at the moment, it is just kind of sidelined for a little bit. But someday, whether it's a year, 5 years, 10 years, I think we'll see something again. Yes.
So you're locking to project. Can you tell us if it's YA or adult?
Which project?
Your next project that you can't tell us about.
Oh, it's YA, and that's all. I'm not even really supposed to acknowledge I have another project, but I told my publisher, I was like, I can't leave them hanging and thinking I'm like retiring from writing. So no, there's definitely stuff coming after Soundless, and it is YA, and it's not Vampire Academy. So that's all I can say about that. I would imagine towards end of summer, maybe fall, we'll be able to talk about it more. So yeah, it's really awesome working with a big publisher, but they have a schedule they like to let things out. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you ever wish to revisit old series, for example, Georgina Kincaid?
Oh, Georgina Kincaid. Yeah, that's my baby. That's one of my favorite series. Still one of my most favorite to write, I think, because Georgina and I have the same sense of humor. So it's like writing my diary if I were a creature from hell. That's exactly what it would be like. So that series, probably more than my others, has a pretty resolved ending. There's a couple of things I could pick up. It would be interesting to pick up what happens to her. A lot of people, I run into people who want me to do this spin-off starring Carter and Jerome, their own buddy thing going on. So I don't know. It's kind of the same answer as before. It would depend on the time, but it certainly not forgotten. It's really hard for me to close the door on any project. Like in my head, there's always a point I could come back to it. It's just these old ideas are competing with my new ideas, and so yeah, it's tough finding the time, especially with two little kids. Maybe when they're teenagers and don't want to hang out with me anymore, I'll have all this free time to write books. But it's super busy right now. Yeah, other things? Yes.
Who's your favorite author besides yourself?
Believe me, I'm not my favorite author. I don't like to read my books after I write them, which people who found continuity errors are probably like, no kidding, Richelle. I can tell you don't read your books again. Favorite author, I'm a big fan of Marion Zimmer Bradley, who wrote The Mists of Avalon, which was a big, giant tome of a book based in Arthurian myth. Also like Shuri S. Tepper, who's a sci-fi author. I don't know if she's still putting out new stuff. Who's modern that I like that people would know more? I'm a big fan of Margaret Stoll's writing, which makes me feel a little weird because we're also friends. So I'm like, am I just biased because like I like to hang out with her? But no, she's a solid writer. Beautiful Creatures and Icon series, I like that, and I like Rachel Kane's books quite a bit as well. I think she's a great writer. And again, she's also my friend too. But I was like a fangirl of her before we became friends, so that was cool. Yeah. Anything else out there? Yes.
So this doesn't really relate to any of your novels, but well, it does. But what are your feelings about fan fiction on your work? Like, how do you feel about fans going through and writing in your universe? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't read any fan fiction. It's just it's too weird for me, like to see that. In some ways, like that just comes from anyone doing something with my work. Like there are actually times reading the script for the Vampire Academy movie was strange because it's like, whoa, these are my characters and someone else is writing them, and it's just weird. And fan fiction is the same way. But fan fiction fulfills a purpose for sure, and it gives enjoyment to a lot of people, and there a lot of happy things happen in fan fiction, and that doesn't always happen in my books. So if people need that, it is serving a purpose, and I get the need sometimes when you read a book, like you think to yourself, this is how the story should go. Like if fan fiction had existed in the 80s, I would have been writing Gem and She-Ra fan fiction like crazy because I got a lot of ideas, and my agent knows if anyone ever comes and wants to do a reboot, needs a novelization of She-Ra, like he can sign my name with like any terms. I'm like, I'm your woman. So yeah. So if people are writing fanfic and not making money off it, it's good for them. Things over here. You're a quiet group. You guys have all seen me before. You know all the answers and all my jokes. Yes.
What about when you're writing and does say that a character from a different series, does it ever answer for the current series that you're writing about? Like, has that ever happened?
Like where I've wanted to put in a character from another series into.
Or like something occurred in the series that you were writing, and you were like, oh, that's Georgina would have said this, or something of that nature. Has that ever happened?
Not too usually. What is that? Not too often. I was gonna say not usually or not too often. It's not a frequent thing. Mostly because once I am head down in a novel, I am so immersed in that world. Like the other ones are just gone for me. Lots of things are gone for me, like doing dishes and laundry. Like it's all just, it's all tossed to the side. I think the most, probably the only place that's kind of sort of happened where I would mix things up was actually writing the dual POVs in the Bloodlines series, because I would forget that I had just switched over to Adrian or Sydney, and so I would start a chapter that was supposed to have been in the other person's point of view, and so that would take a little finagling to go back, because they have very different tones and style the way they tell the story. So that's just about it. I saw another hand here. Yes.
Are you going to be hosting any panels while you're at the Y'all West Book Festival in LA?
They haven't finalized their schedule. I will certainly be on panels, I know. Yeah, if anyone's in Los Angeles in April, Y'all West, good event. But yeah, I don't know my schedule yet, but they will certainly make use of me. They won't let me just hang out and have free drinks. I'm going to have to work for it, I know. So yeah, that's a cool event. And that actually reminds me, if anybody lives or goes to school in Pierce County, there is a very cool event happening in May called Cavalcade of Authors. And if you are into writing, this is an event. It's being put on by the Pierce County Libraries. I will be there, Kim Durding, Marissa Meyer, and a few other authors, and we are teaching workshops for teenagers about writing, all different topics. So look up Cavalcade of Authors West, and you need like a librarian or a teacher needs to fill out your form and organize the logistics. But it is a pretty cool opportunity if you are into writing. Yeah. I kept seeing a hand back here. Am I imagining that? No? Did someone give up? Left? Went off? Okay. We're about ready to sign. Do we have any more last minute questions? You can always talk to me at the signing table too. Okay, quiet group. We will wrap up. Before we, is there a question? Oh, go ahead. Names for my characters? Sometimes it's something that just feels right. Like I like a name. Adrian is a name I like a lot, so I use that. If I'd known I'd have two boys, I wouldn't have used Adrian in my books. Because then I was like, what am I going to name these guys? I used up all my good boy names. So sometimes it is just a feel like that. And other times there's meaning to it. Like Vasilisa is a common name in Russian folklore. There's a lot of heroines, Vasilisa the Brave, Vasilisa the Beautiful, that I just thought it was cool to have an iconic figure from that part of the world be the princess in this story. Yeah. Okay, so we are going to sign some books soon. I know Mr. Dwayne will explain the 3-book limits and all of that. I will briefly touch on pictures. Because we do have a large group here, which is awesome, we aren't going to do like stopped and posed pictures because it slows the line down so much, and you will thank me if you're at the end of the line. But I do want you to get your pictures in, so of course you are welcome to snap candids like crazy, and there will be a person standing near the table who is happy to take your camera while I'm signing your book, and if we both want to look up and smile and give a thumbs up or whatever, she'll snap it. But mostly it's just, I just need to keep signing. I must keep signing books. I cannot take a break. So if you can just help us out with that, that would be super. So thank you for listening to me chatter. Here is Dwayne.